Welcome in, everyone. Ready to go beyond those hit songs and really get to know Johnny Cash.
Absolutely. Digging into the Man in Black's life and music, using Robert Hilburn's biography as our guide.
Perfect. The book's fantastic. So Cash's story, right, it starts in Dyes, Arkansas. Picture the Depression, hard times all over. But Dyes, man, it was brutal.
Hilburn really paints a vivid picture of that place. It wasn't just poverty, you know? They had to practically dynamite tree stumps just to clear the land for farming.
Yeah, imagine that. Young J.R. Cash out there working alongside his family. Tough conditions. And while his father, Ray, thought music was a distraction.
Music was young JR's escape. It makes you wonder if those years of hardship actually fueled his creativity, right?
Yeah, you can hear that struggle, that resilience in so many of his later songs. Think about 5 Feet High and Rising. That's Dyes in a song.
Totally. And even back then, his influences were already forming his sound. Jimmie Rodgers, the Carter family, Gene Autry. It's interesting, how he thought Jimmie Rodgers was singing to him directly through the radio.
Oh, I love that story. It shows how deeply connected to music he was from a young age. But those influences, gospel, country, blues, it all blends into something unique, right?
Absolutely. It's his signature sound, that mix of genres. But before that sound really developed, Cash graduates high school, a bit lost, not sure of his path. Then, bam, he joins the Air Force. What do you think drew him to military life?
I think it was that structure, that discipline, something he didn't really have growing up, and of course, seeing the world beyond Dyes. But Hilburn also talks about how Cash became a radio operator in the Air Force.
Right. And that connects back to his childhood fascination with radio. These threads, man, it's like they were always there.
It's fascinating. And then, while stationed in Germany, he meets Vivian Liberto at a roller rink. Shy guy, head over heels, exchanging thousands of letters while he's overseas.
Those letters, they kept him grounded, but Hilburn also doesn't sugarcoat it. Germany, for Cash, it also meant drinking, partying, those wild times, as he'd later call them.
A foreshadowing of struggles to come. But hey, it's after the Air Force that Cash decides to chase his musical dreams, moves to Memphis with Vivian, determined to make it big, and sets his sights on Sun Records.
Sun Records, man, that was the place to be. Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins. Must have been intimidating for a young Cash.
Absolutely. And it wasn't instant success either. Hilburn talks about how Cash kept calling Sam Phillips, just wouldn't give up until he got an audition. What was it about Cash that finally caught Phillips's attention?
That voice, man. That presence. But initially, Phillips wasn't sold on the gospel songs Cash brought in. He told him, write something from your own experience, something real.
Best advice ever. And boom, hey, Porter, his first single on Sun Records. That raw, honest sound, it was something special.
It was. But then came Folsom Prison Blues. And get this, Phillips initially rejected it.
No way.
Yeah, didn't think it was catchy enough. But Cash fought for it, believed in its power.
He sped it up, reworked it, and boom, a smash hit. It's funny, right? A song inspired by a movie about a place he'd never been becomes his signature song.
It's that ability to tap into universal feelings, isolation, longing, He made you feel like he was singing your story.
Exactly. So things are looking up, hit records, the Louisiana Hayride, sharing the stage with legends, but then cracks start to appear.
The Hayride was huge for him, exposure to a massive audience. But with success comes pressure, and we start to see the toll it takes. The pills, the strain on his marriage with Vivian, it's all building up.
And all this as his career is skyrocketing. I Walk the Line, one of his most iconic songs, written while battling those demons.
It's a stark contrast, The highs and lows always intertwined, and right about then, Gene Carter enters the picture. But that, my friend, is a story for part 2.
Last time, we left Johnny Cash at a crossroads, right? Success, but those personal demons are lurking. And then comes June Carter. Now, she wasn't just some background singer, right?
Oh, no. June Carter, she was country royalty. Daughter of Maybelle Carter, part of the legendary Carter family.
Exactly. So what was it about June that pulled Cash in?
Well, she was an amazing performer. That humor, that vulnerability, audiences loved her. And she wasn't some newbie either, She had her own successful career, understood the pressures of the music business, life on the road.
They connected on so many levels, right? Creative, emotional, through their shared experiences. But it wasn't some storybook romance. Cash was still with Vivian, and things got messy.
Oh, yeah. Hilburn tells it straight. The affair, the drugs, the hurt it caused both families, real life intruding, even for these huge stars. And it's in the middle of all that turmoil that Cash writes some of his best stuff. Ring of Fire, for example.
That song, man. So many people haven't even realized June wrote it, about her love for Cash.
It's raw, honest, captures all that intensity, the good and the bad. And musically, it's so different, that mariachi sound, those horns, it's like nothing else on the radio at the time.
Proof that they pushed each other creatively. Now, another album from this time, Ride This Train.
Yeah.
What made that one so special?
Ride This Train, it was a concept album. Early 1960s, this was pretty new. It wasn't just a bunch of random songs, you know? It was a whole journey through American history, folklore, told through music and Cash's narration.
Cash was a master storyteller, and you hear it on that album. But it's easy to forget that side of him. He wasn't just a guy singing, right? He was an artist, pushing the boundaries of what country music could be.
Absolutely. And speaking of pushing boundaries, we can't forget that live album from Folsom Prison, 1968. That rawness, that energy, pure Cash.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. One of the greatest live albums ever. And it cemented his image as a voice for the outsiders, right? The downtrodden, forgotten.
He connected with those prisoners, man, recognized their pain, their struggles. It wasn't a performance, it was real, a conversation happening right there on stage. But off stage, things are falling apart for Cash.
His addiction gets worse, the divorce from Vivian, those near-death experiences. It's heavy stuff, especially when you consider how creative he was at the same time.
It's that duality. That's what makes Cash's story so fascinating, right? The light and the darkness, always there. He never hid his flaws, his pain. It's what makes him relatable.
So how does he climb out of that hole? June obviously plays a big role, but it couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't. Rock bottom, rehab, a real spiritual shift. June was there through it all, his anchor. But she wasn't just coddling him, right? She pushed him, challenged him to be better.
Their relationship, yeah, unconventional for sure, but in the end, it gave them both strength. They marry in '68, and for Cash, it's a new beginning.
It really is. And that's when we see another big turn in his career. Enter Rick Rubin, this producer known for rock, hip-hop, like worlds away from what people associated with Cash.
Strange pairing, right. What did Rubin see that others missed?
Rubin saw past the labels, heard that timeless quality in Cash's voice, his songs. He stripped away all the fancy production, got back to the core of the man and his music.
And that led to the American recordings, right?
Yeah.
These stark, stripped-down albums that brought Cash to a whole new generation of fans.
It was incredible, a resurgence no one saw coming. These albums showed his depth, his vulnerability, covering songs by Nine Inch Nails, Soundgarden, alongside traditional gospel and his own writing.
It's amazing how he could do all that, stay true to himself, and still connect with people across genres, across generations. Never afraid to take chances, challenge what people expected. And around the same time, the Highwaymen formed. Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson.
Wow, talk about a country music supergroup, right? But it was more than just the names. These guys, they were all rebels in their own way, pushing the limits of country music.
And through it all, Cash was still battling health issues, the legacy of addiction. It's a reminder that these icons, these legends, they're human too.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson in all of this. Cash never pretended to be perfect. He owned his mistakes, his struggles, and that made him even more real, even more powerful.
Man, what a journey. From those cotton fields in Arkansas to global stardom. We've seen Cash at his highest, his lowest, and everything in between. But now it's legacy time. What do you think keeps people coming back to Johnny Cash decades after he's gone?
Well, the music, obviously, it's huge, right? Those songs, they're classics. Folsom Prison Blues, I Walk the Line, Man in Black. People still cover them, discover them for the first time. They never get old.
It's more than just country music, though, right? Cash crosses genres,
Yeah.
Rock fans, folk fans, even guys like Joe Strummer covering Ring of Fire. How does he appeal to so many different people?
Honesty, I think. Cash was who he was, no pretense. He sang about real stuff, things we all go through. Love, loss, faith, struggle. Didn't matter if you were a farmer or a punk rocker, his music just hit you in the gut.
And he didn't shy away from tough topics either. Spoke out against injustice, for Native American rights, prison reform. Man in Black wasn't just a look, it was a statement.
Totally. He used his fame to speak for the voiceless, the forgotten. And he did it with such humility, you know? Never forgot where he came from, the struggles he went through.
That always stood out to me. Cash never acted like he was above it all. Open about his addiction, his demons, made him even more human, more relatable.
Exactly. He was flawed, messed up sometimes, just like us. But he kept going, kept fighting. I think that's why people connect with him so deeply. He was real.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope listeners take away from Cash's story?
Tough one. I guess it's that even when things are dark, you can always find hope. Cash, he hit rock bottom, but he got back up. Found redemption, found his voice, used it to make a difference.
Well said. And we've only scratched the surface here, right? There's so much more to discover. His music, his writings, the stories people told about him.
So much to dig into.
Keep exploring, keep listening, and I guarantee you'll find something in Johnny Cash that speaks to you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.